This is the best real estate agent coaching tool on the planet. I absolutely love it. So I want to make sure that we all understand it and know it and use it and implement in our businesses. We talk about, real estate agents planning their businesses. I think many of we coach many of the highest performing, real estate brokerage managers, broker owners, real estate team leaders, a lot of different leadership across the country. And what I believe is the best tool for them for the foundation of their coaching, I'm going to show you. And this is great for all agents, solo agents, teams, it doesn't matter. You can use this with anybody. You can use this for an entire brokerage, these tools that I'm going to show you. It's actually one tool. And I've seen these tools other places, and we kind of combine them all to one business tracker. And what's crazy, it's like a fillable form Excel spreadsheet. So it works with anything on anything, which is so important if you do what I do, because there's different software platforms and everybody wants to integrate, which becomes the enemy of, in my opinion, productivity. When you integrate everything, then one thing gets clunky, everything gets clunky, it gets kind of hard. So, when you're someone like me, we try to freestyle that and create, products and tools that can work with any system, because there's so many different systems you could use and people are constantly upgrading them. So I think we've done that. And I'm really excited about that. So I really do think this is the best real estate agent coaching tool on the planet, at least from a foundational standpoint. I absolutely love it. So I want to make sure that we all understand it and know it and use it and implement in our businesses. You can download it with this as well too, but watch first and then download, because I think an explanation is what's very important. So you can kind of hear how we use it. So without further ado, I am going to show you and explain to you the ICC business tracker. And this is it. And nothing nothing gets us focused more on activities and creates an atmosphere of accountability and therefore personal responsibility ultimately than tracking activities. That's the key to everything. And to do that, we start out with planning them in advance, then holding ourselves accountable to our plan, right? And so this business tracker is actually created preventatively. And all we do is, you're going to see on this form, it scrolls up and down. We're going to stop with the first part, but this is it. It's just got 3 major sections, or maybe 4. The section at the top, we fill out, and that's, we're just going to fill out the blue areas, right? So here, we're probably doing this. This person or this entity has a transactional goal of 350 units per year. And that's probably a brokerage, maybe a boutique brokerage, or it could be a real estate team. A solo agent, probably not. Again, this can work for any of the above. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get us back in there and get us taking a look at it so you can see where we're at. So what you will see is we'll click on the first cell, and we can actually change all of the parts that are shaded in light blue. So let's change that. Let's say we're working with a solo agent and their goal is to close 35 transactions. That's a heck of a year. Let's say they're going to close 35 transactions. So we type in 35 at the top, and it's going to change all the numbers down below. So it's a fillable form that auto-populates, right? And then we can just skip these 2 white ones, these 2 white cells, and go down to the next blue one that requires our attention. We're going to decide what percentage we get of our production each year. What percentage is going to come from buyer side transactions representing buyers versus representing sellers. Again, we only have to fill out one of them here. This first one at the top, the percentage from buyers, is what they want us to fill out. And if you don't know, or it's too hard to guess, just put 50-50. That's kind of normal. Typically, newer agents will represent more buyers. Younger agents will represent more buyers because members of their sphere of influence typically don't own a house yet, for example. So they may have more on the buyer side business. So you might have 60% buyers there, maybe 70%, just depending on who you are, what your team looks like, what your brokerage looks like, getting a feel for our audience. And when we're working in coaching, understanding that we're really painting that picture out there of what can we anticipate, and then also looking a little bit at our historical track record to determine, right? Let's say this is a a newer agent, that still is trying to get more listings than buyers, because that's more ideal. You can handle a lot more of those at once than you can buyers. Sellers are always desired more. But let's say we put in here 60, okay? And so we changed the goal to 60% from buyers. Well, for some reason that did not auto-populate all of a sudden here. So let's keep it at 50 so it's correct. That's weird. I will fix that. And then let's say your average commission, depending on where you're at, different geographies can change here. If you've got an area where there's a significant amount of transactions where the buyer side's only being paid out 2.5% or even 2% for a lot of luxury areas, things like that, you just got to know what your average commission is. So in that case, let's just put here, maybe it's 2.65%. Okay. So now that's going to change all our numbers accordingly. Your average sales price, depending on what that is, we're showing 400 here. Let's go to the national medium. Let's make it 350. Okay. So let's just put 350,000 in there. And that's going to change a lot more of our numbers, right? So it's going to actually show us that we got an average commission. We can expect 9,275. Our GCI goal, our gross commission income goal for this particular agent that we're holding accountable here, is going to be up over $324,000 in change. Okay. So it actually auto-populates that, and it goes down below as well. And again, we just need to pay attention to these blue lines, because everything will auto-populate all the way through, okay? If we just fill out the blue cells, right? And we actually on this one start down at the bottom. It presents better reading it from top to bottom, but we start at the bottom to fill this one out. And as of right now, based on the above information, if we get 41 leads, people that raise their hand and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying or selling a house in the near future, maybe sometime this next year, if we need 41 of those a year to hit our goal at these conversion rates, right? And this depends. Like, for example, a seller conversion rate depends on the quality of the lead. And that often depends on where you get your business. So it varies from agent to agent. If you have a strong referral-based agent that has developed their SOI and spent the time to get it in their CRM, they're going to get a very high conversion rate off their listing appointments. But if they're like if they're still trying to convert online leads from pay-per-click sources, which is a good way to generate business, but you're going to have a very low conversion rate because you're going on listing appointments with people who are just thinking about it and don't even know you. So they could be more competitive. You might be in an area that has high competition where you're constantly, every time you go on a listing, they're interviewing 2 other agents. That's common too. So depending on all these different things and where your lead generation sources are coming from, it's why tracking is so important. I know no one ever wants to do that. They just want to go get business, if at all. And that's why knowing where your business and what your conversion rates are extremely important. And that's something we do when we coach as well. So it can come from a lot of different sources out there. And want to make sure that we're aware of that when we generate this business. Okay. Then in addition to that, so then, if we get 41 leads and we have a 75% conversion rate, let's say that we get a little bit more from our SOI, from our sphere of influence. And our conversion rate's actually 85%, because when they call us, it's usually someone I know pretty well that I've been working in my SOI. So they're pretty much going to be a listing. They're not going with anybody else, and they're going to list with me, and they like my pricing. I'm a good pricer. So then it's going to change some of our other numbers. So we generate that conversion rate. Okay. Then we know that, at 85% conversion rate, that's going to give us just north of 30 listing appointments that we go on. From the listing appointments that we go, what's our conversion rate to actually taking the listings? They don't choose somebody else, right? So these are appointments to contracts, and that contract's a listing agreement. We got in there 80%. Let's just leave that in there. And that means we're going to take 24 listings based on getting 36 leads. And that's what we need to take to hit our goal up here of 35 units and generate over 300,000 in commission income, right? And then what percentage of the listings that we take actually get offers on them? That could depend on your price point. That, luxury listings tend to not sell as a high as conversion rate. Could be how hot your market is, how well you price homes so that we get offers. All of those things we've got to take into consideration. Again, we try to speculate on your averages in your area and or look at your historical track record if you have one, right? And we'll put that conversion rate in there, and we can see how many actually go under contract, and then we can see how many close. You know, if we get offer and acceptance, what's our fallout rate? How many of our transactions actually were buyers back out? You know, and that can matter. You know, that can, you know, so, you know, how bulletproofed are our transactions? How good are our systems and our processes? How strong are our buyers? Often depends on how strong our pricing is, right? And that'll work all the way through. And if we switch over to the buyer side, it's really the same thing. We can calculate, you know, based on this 50-50 goal up here, how many buyer leads we need. Need 41 leads at the current conversion rate, okay? But, you know, let's say that, you know, once, you know, and one thing I want to show you here, buyer listings taken, you know, that buyer listings means a buyer agency agreement. Okay. That's just coaching talk, you know, productivity coaching talk. Buyer listing means you're getting buyer agency agreements. And I know a lot of people have a hard time with those and they have a lot of head trash around it, but almost every coach will tell you that the top agents all do that. The top teams do that. Because then we set clear expectations that we intend to work with you. Because if they go work with somebody else and put in an offer with somebody else after you've shown them a house or something and even met with them, but you didn't get a buyer agency agreement, then they probably had a bad understanding. So don't say buyers are liars. It's you not being able to sit down and clearly explain your expectations up front and getting the confidence around that you're going to have a client agent representation or agency agreement. So being able to confidently have that conversation and lay out your expectations and ask them to agree to them, that's kind of next level professionalism, right? If you have head trash around that, we got a problem. So we got to make sure that our agents are doing that. Because once we have that, then we can know the conversion rate's usually very high, that you're going to close that transaction. They're not going to work with somebody else. They're going to move forward. So that's a big one right there to understand. Other than that, you know, then it's going to be the same fallout rate, you know, lead to appointment, which is a buyer consultation, as opposed to just running out and showing properties and constantly showing properties and never bringing them back into a meeting where we plan out the strategy and get them pre-qualified. Otherwise, they're just not going to be tied to us. So you can't get mad if they don't use you. So that's how that works out. It'll actually break down exactly how many buyer closings we need, seller closings we need, how much commission income we can expect from each, what our commission breakdowns will be, everything all the way through. Then we've got a listings needed form down below. And this one's really important as well too, because we want to plan out, this is a really big one. Because oftentimes, I'm going to explain to you, oftentimes when we plan, we want to look in the front view mirror and we want to make sure that we're always motivated throughout the year. And we've actually shown you how to do that, because now you can see, here's how many closings I need this year. Here's how many closings I need for my buy side and my sell side. So you can kind of see at any time throughout the year, whether you're ahead of your goal or behind your goal. And it's really hard to even pick a goal for next year without doing this exercise. You almost need this tool, because otherwise you're just kind of, let's see, I closed 5 last year. Maybe I should close 10 this year. I'll double it, you know, and you're just picking numbers that sound cool. We're not talking about realistically looking at how many leads do I need? How am I going to get them? Is that even possible? How many buyer consults do I have? Do I even have time for that? Where that's going to happen? Like, we have to like look at what activities go behind the goals. And that is what creates personal responsibility. Because all of a sudden we realize what goes into this. Like, where am I going to get these from? Where, you know, I'm just not picking numbers, right? The same thing's true with listings. You know, if we're going to get listings, getting a listing and lead generating from listings, typically we don't do that. 99.9% of agents, unfortunately, especially the ones that don't coach, don't do anything to try and get listings when they have a bunch of them. They, you know, when you got a bunch of listings, you know, you just focus on managing them, you know, which you better have a lot. But trying to motivate people to generate new business while they have business is the key to making agents successful. They have to constantly have that marketing department open, constantly be lead generating for new business, so we don't create gaps in production down the road. Otherwise, you run that real estate roller coaster where you just try to get business in the off season and generate all this business. And then when spring and summer hits, wow, we got all this business, and you just drop the ball. And then, you know, seasonality kicks in or whatever off season kicks in, let's say October, and all of a sudden everything comes off the market and you're like, what am I going to do to get through the winter? Got no income. That's why 87% of agents quit after, and don't make it 5 years. That's why 33% don't make it a year. They get real busy and they just shut down their marketing department. So how do we keep that motivation up? And a great foundation for that is your listings needed form, because on our business tracker up at the top, we talked about, we developed how many listings. We're going to have to close 18 transactions, which means we need to take 24 listings, right? So we actually established what we need to close, okay? So then that auto-populates all of these cells down here, and then they just ask 2 more questions of you. What percentage of your listings actually sell? So if you put a house up for sale, what percentage sell? Okay. In other words, maybe, in the hottest real estate market, maybe at the peak of COVID or something, 99% sold, right? Maybe because, everything you sell at any price, unrealistic expectations of buyers, sellers, whatever. Let's say it's 75%. Okay. Some are overpriced. Some are unattractive. You never know why houses don't sell. Sometimes sellers get cold feet. Who knows? Let's just say 75% of them sell. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of, let's put it back up to 85. I like that number. It's more indicative of positivity, right? So now we know 85% of those actually sell. Then we look at what your average days on market. And that's something it's good to log into your MLS and look at your entire MLS database's average days on market. It's called ADOM, as opposed to just DOM that you see on listings, which is days on market. This is your average days on market in your area. This is higher than you think. People, even in a hot market, they're like, well, I can't imagine any listing taking more than 10 days from selling. Well, there's lots that are overpriced. There's lots of ugly houses, and they take the averages and make them a lot longer. So we do need to use the accurate average, because you're going to get some of those lemons too, But again, we want it to be your average day. So if you don't take those types of listings, then tighten it up a little bit. We have a number of 59 in here. So that is what it is. And remember, we have a goal for 35% of those, 35 closed transactions, and half of them are going to come from listings, right? Okay. So because of that, with 85% selling, it actually does the math for us that we need to have 4 with a fallout rate, meaning 15% of them won't sell. That means to still hit our goal in spite of that, we need to carry 4 active listings at all times, which means even in the winter, to hit that goal. And the way that motivates us is powerful. The way that motivates us is we know, like, we don't just make excuses like in the off season and say, well, it's winter time and, I get all my business the spring and summer anyway. No, we need to be generating that inventory right now. We need to be building our pipeline right now. We need to carry some listings right now because there's all of that, because there's buyers in the off season too. They're the best buyers actually, because they usually have to buy because they sold their house, right? So they're in a hurry and they don't discriminate. Wonderful stuff. So all of that, easiest transactions in the winter. And that's why. So you have an agent that gets that listings needed when their listing inventory is below what they need. In that case, it was 4 active listings at any given time. If their inventory drops down to 3, that puts motivation. What can we do? And they realize, and then, whoever's coaching that agent can then turn around and say, hey, come on, man, you're behind. I mean, you only got 2 listings right now. You need 4. I know it's Christmas and all, but we got to get your inventory back up, or you're not going to hit your goals. All those calculations we did were based on you carrying 4 active listings at all times. Why are they low? Rather than making excuses for ourselves. That's the reason we make excuses for ourselves in the morning when we can't get out of bed to go to the gym, right? We need someone to hold us accountable. And that's what that does. That's what a coach does, a good leader does with any and all agents. So that's your ICC business tracker.